people.
Well, everybody, welcome today. I'm actually going to hand it over to Donna because she's going to kind of kick us off today. But while we are going at it, Donna, do you mind if I just check if all our actors are here so that we can make sure who we've got and who we don't have? So please unmute yourself and say if you're here, right? Is Jacinta Canary here? Okay, I'm not seeing that she's here. Is Janine Peterson here? Gavin Sher, I did see you. And Joseph Rathinam. I think he's here. I saw him. And I know Joseph is here. So do you mind if I give some others here some roles, right? Because some of my people's not here, but I know some of you. So I'm going to give you some roles. So jury, I love you, right? And what's happening is that I know that you can kind of poke the bear, right? So in our play, do you mind playing the cynic for us? Right? Like really, when the cynic, I mean, like you're actually going and saying, but why that? Why that? Why that? You know, poking the bear kind of thing. And you do that well. So jury, you're our cynic. And let me just check anybody else. So we've got, I need somebody that is willing to be, who likes rule bending. And I don't mean in a bad way. I mean, like, as in you look at the rules and realize they're not all serving us. So is there somebody in here that's saying, yeah, I'll be your rule bender? Anybody? Unmute yourself and say, yay.
Ferial, what am I supposed to do?
You are the crazy artist.
Okay. So I wait.
Yes, wait. I'm busy with the rule bender. Does anybody want to be the rule bender? How about you, Audie? I feel like you're smiling. I feel like you're my rule bender, girl. Right? So Audie's my rule bender. And thank you, Audie. I volunteered you. And okay, so Gavin's our storyteller. We've got Joseph, that's going to be our establishment guru. Now, those of you who know Joseph, he's been working at this 30 years, establishing a wonderful community all around the world called Neighborocracy. So Joseph, you are my establishment guru. And then we have got our weaver. Is Angus here? Angus Joseph? Are you here?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Great. So you're my weaver. Excellent. And then we have the crazy creative. That's you, Sharon, for sure. And then my activist. So is Linus here? Okay. So does anybody else, if Linus is not here, does anybody else feel like, yay, I like that activist role. I like, kind of going for causes. I think many of us are like this in here, but who'd like to play that role for me? Anybody else?
Yeah, I can go.
I saw that person. Yes, you're my girl. Thank you. And then I have the quiet, reassuring one. It's Gian Wong, and he's there. Very quiet, very wise, very reassuring. Thank you, Gian. And my inner development champion will be Suzanne Jenkins. So Suzanne, I see you there. So everybody's got their roles, right? So the rest of you that don't have a role, and if you're sitting and you're listening into this, right? We don't want anybody to be a listening in. We want everybody to be a participator. So if you identify with any one of those roles, get behind that person and you're just kind of pumping them with information in the chat, okay? So all our role players, you're kind of looking and you're looking at your chats to see what the others are saying for you, how you can behave and what you can present and so on. And now with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Donna just to get us in the frame of what we're actually doing today. Donna, over to you.
Thank you all, and it's good to be here. And it really builds nicely if you were in the last session and probably in a number of them. The subject is extreme polarization. And I think we can all relate to that. And this is going to be a fun social experiment. it's not tightly scripted. We're just going to go with the flow. Let's have some fun with this. At some level, we haven't got a clue what we're doing, but that's kind of illustrative of the world we live in, is it not? And so let's go with the flow, go with the chaos, and then see what emerges from this. But let me set the stage for us. And bear with me because I probably will read a little bit of this so that I don't just go on and on and on. So, for many people around the world, society is something that is done to them, rather than something that can be a participatory part of and that they can influence over. Citizens of the world, we are at a tipping point for humanity, society, and the planet. We should now come together in ways that humanity's never seen before and engage in doing citizenship rather than being passive citizens, let alone being the mass consumers and subjects that our social systems have turned us into over centuries. We cannot feel agency or meaningfully participate or collaborate or exchange learning and wisdom or become resilient or joy-filled without this. We cannot do any of this without overcoming the polarization that exists in our world. And although polarization exists in all the obvious ways and places that we all see everywhere, every day, it really exists in the most extreme and yet benign ways in a surprising place in each of us. We each carry the monsters of our own histories and experiences and characters and behaviors, our conduct. And we can now try to dance with these monsters, ourselves and with each other. What follows is an attempt to explore in less than 2 hours how we might come together, overcome our monsters, embrace them perhaps, disarm them, okay, how we can overcome them and begin to purposely be and together in the pursuit of some common aims and contributions to have real, meaningful impact in society. So, without further ado, I think you've already introduced the characters, Ferial, and you all need to maybe just kind of do a little shake of the hand, and everybody give their bodies a little shake because we've been sitting here for a while. But a little shake of the hand for those of you that are going to be the characters. It doesn't really stop any of you from jumping in here and being a character. We'll have to kind of go with that because that's kind of what happens, right, in life. But anyway, we've got a cast of characters and we're going to take you through, and I think it's 6 acts. And it's kind of iterative. Although we've sort of lined up these acts, we know that people will say things that are, out of sequence and out of character and all of that. And that's cool. But to the extent that we can do this, let's just kind of play with this, go with the flow, and whatever happens is all that good. Kind of the same principles of open space at some level apply because, by God, guys, we are all in open space. So that's basically the setup here. And let's actually see if we can get some amazing insights and identify a purpose and outcomes. And in this way, do citizenship, where citizen is now a verb. Okay, we're actually citizening together. So Ferial, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point to take us into the very first act.
Okay, so we had another facilitator. So we're also actors, right? So if you can look at us like in society, what we're proposing in a sense with how we're governing, right? That this perhaps is a new way of governing, right? Where the citizens are actually participating with the governance, right? We're kind of giving a flow. So Donna, because I'm thinking that I would do 3 and 4. Do you want to do 1 and 2, right? Because we're filling in for Steve, who's busy with some challenge right now, but we're all good. So Donna, do you want to go for 1 and 2, and I'll do act 3 and 4.
Okay, bear with me for a moment because I hadn't pulled up act 1. So, okay, let's get warmed up into this. This is about monsters, and it's something that we actually did a whole lot of research over many years, 7 years. Just basically the word monsters is one that everybody can relate to. Any form of problem, barrier, many of them are inside ourselves. They can come out in the form of, manifest in any number of ways. And these have been surfaced in all the conversations we've been having on the Connect-a-thon. They can be systemic, they can be whatever. So to get things warmed up and catalyzed here, this theater troupe, this group of people that have now come together, we need to start to identify, what are those monsters? So we're engaging in a conversation with you all where we're just saying, what are the monsters that each of us bring to the table, and how we can learn to orientate and navigate and negotiate our way through this. So let's just do a little brainstorming amongst the theater troupe around, what are these monsters? And if you can, just sort of be in role in terms of the things that you are most passionately care about from that sort of perspective. So let's just go ahead and I would say kind of popcorn style, so that this doesn't feel too, too contrived and rigid. And if we need to kind of slow down, breathe a little bit, we'll just ask you to just give a chance for the others. Ferial, if you can just help around the making sure we're remembering and including everybody, because I haven't got a fix on that right now.
I will do.
Okay. So monsters, the things that the people, the situations, the behaviors, the whatever that create extreme polarization. Let's go.
And remember your character.
Jump
Who
in.
wants to go first?
All of you on go off mute. All of you that are on the with us. Just go. Joseph? Yep, just go ahead. You can put, people can also put some things in the chat. This feels like a change of pace, folks, but let's just jump in there. Monsters. What are the various monsters and the various manifestations?
So in other words, what are the monsters you deal with? Think about it this way, that we have these very different, even in this room, very different mindset on specific topics, like let's say poverty or COVID vaccinations or whatever. We have different ideas about this, and that's what we're trying to flesh out. What monsters are showing up for the cynic? What shows up for the weaver? So, etc.
And just a quick interjection here. Can you remember what the thing that we're trying to discuss here is polarization? So the whole idea is, if you think about that from a perspective of what are the monsters that show up, what makes you or other people polarized? What creates that polarization within you or others? That's the question we're fundamentally asking here or exploring here.
Yep.
Yeah, for me as an activist, I feel a lot of hate against big, powerful institutions and people who just constantly keep destroying our planet. And I feel so helpless because I'm just this one person, this girl who wants to create a change, and they're just continuing to exploit, and it really hurts me. That's why I join all these actions, and I try to rebel, and I try to disobey. Yeah.
I'm feeling the Greta vibe.
Good point, guys. Don't worry so much about sounding polite. Just, let it rip. We're all living with it. Come on.
For me, the archetype of the monster I fear the most is any dude who thinks he's got the way, the way that if we don't do this, we're all messed. And so I will do anything at all to ensure we go that way, irrespective of what it is.
I think as a rule breaker, I would think of manipulation at the highest levels in the context of polarization. And mass manipulation, psychologically, emotionally, I would weave that into the narrative as far as possible. Go out all out shamelessly.
Okay, and feelings. What does it bring up in you in terms of the feelings you have when you're in?
I think as far as feelings, power play, power struggles, insecurity, protecting that feeling of insecurity that I might lose if I don't.
Yeah, feel into this.
So what does my kind of quiet, reassuring one think about this?
Are you
Gian?
talking about me?
Yes, that's you.
Was that quiet enough? They say there's wisdom in silence. Let's just try be silent for a few seconds. Okay, let's be silent and see what wisdom emerges in us. Okay. Close your eyes, everyone, for a few seconds and reflect on the words that were just said and spoken. Just relax for a few seconds into those words, reflect, and think about what they bring up in you. And then just share here.
What does my cynic think? That's you, Jury.
Come on. Holy shit, guys. We get angry. We see stuff. So the feelings come out. This is a change of pace now. We're in a theater. This is a play. Picture us on the stage just yucking it up and saying whatever comes into our heads.
Joseph, I mean, Jury, what do you think about that, this polarization stuff? I know you got deep thoughts.
Well, I don't know. I'm a bit distracted, but the whole thing is that the polarities exist because they are two sides of the same coin. So it's very difficult to overcome that. What we can do is to understand the mutual arising. So once you reflect on that, you may look at it differently. But so what I'm saying is that existence is, in that sense, has these polarities, and it's a mutual arising. It's a yin and yang. So don't always be angry about it. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Suzanne, what's my inner development doing?
Well, my inner development champion is observing the world and wondering, why is everyone so influenced by outside influences and everyone around them and pointing fingers outside, whereas it's an inside job? So do you not realize that the source of all of this is from, hello, me? So I'm just observing this and thinking, when will the eyes open and turn back and say, okay, let me get my stuff and realize I'm the source. And then maybe it will be a better world. That's what inner me thinks.
And Joseph, my establishment guru that has done it for a while, you've been at it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm so disgusted the way things happen, creating a false sense of insecurity among people, and based on that, creating hatred and such disgusting things. And it is going on very systematically, built one by one, step by step, so that the whole world will be at chaos.
And my crazy artist, what are you saying? What is the monster showing up for you? Sharon? Okay, I don't see.
Can you repeat?
The crazy, because we're talking about extreme polarizations, extreme different ways of approaching something. And in that, because we have these extreme different ways, when we meet up with each other, there's some anger that kind of, and some feelings that come up. So they've been sharing theirs from their perspective. Now you are an artist. What irritates you about this? What's your monster?
My monster. Okay. Anyone wants to reply, or I should?
You should. It's your turn. Well, I'll give you a space. I'll first get my Weaver. So I'll give you time to think about it. Weaver, what do you think?
We were here to remind us that the story we make of the world, we place ourselves at the center of it. That's how we can figure out how to relate. And it comes from the illumination that often our identities, our
Lost you? I think we lost.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep it going. Let's build on what Susie was saying around the feelings that go on for her, and let's build on Joseph, because he talked, disgust, feeling disgust, and the monster of disgust and what happens. So let's kind of peel back another layer, and then we'll move on shortly to our next act. But there's more here. If we get out of our heads a little bit and say, what goes on for us as we experience and observe and that polarization.
I mean, on one side, if I were to look at, as a rule breaker, I could be on the negative side, I could be on the positive side. So what I said was from the mind of, more from the negative perspective. But if I were to be a rule breaker on the positive side of it, I would say that, the sudden feeling I would get, and if I were in a positive frame of mind, I would say that we're all stardust at the end of the day. I would completely, melt the lines and literally just trivialize the whole idea of polarization and say, it really doesn't make sense to me. Why do I even consider it as a reality that's been imposed on me to consider it as a reality?
Can I say?
I wouldn't consider it.
Yes.
I wouldn't consider it.
When you wanted to, you chose monsters just so it can be played and we can imagine something. That's nice. But monsters represent our fears, and fears are kind of embedded in our DNAs to protect us. This is very ancient. So the thing is really to learn how to deal with our fears. And like so far, the way we deal with fear is to secure ourselves. We make up stories, as I mentioned before, and we are ready to go to war, like fight with anyone who is a monster, because he's not like us. But now we are retelling the story, and actually it's if it's a new storytelling, then who are the monsters? Who are the new monsters? Because we have fears. And okay, what do we do with these monsters? Like, do we invite them for tea and cookies, and we recognize them, and then we send them away, and we tell them, hey, we know you exist, we know you are monsters and you are doing your job, you're trying to scare us, but hey, I'm Ferial, I'm Sharon, we are eco-citizens, and we also have a job here, so have your tea and leave, right?
Okay.
Packing.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm alone, then I have the feeling that the monsters are way stronger than me and that there's nothing that I can do. But then when I'm with my community, when I'm with the group of people that I fight with together for the causes that I care about, then I suddenly realize that together we can do it, and together the monsters are actually not as big and as scary as they are when I'm alone. And that really helps me to also then relate with others and to see that we're all trying to work together with our demons and to find peace, and relating with each other. That really helps.
Okay, so people are starting to speak about the things that we all try to do to deal with the monsters, and that's part of our little, enactment here. Last call, I would say at this point on
There's Gavin.
extreme polarization. Gavin.
So as the as the storyteller, I guess I would say with the polarization, we have an opportunity for adventure and for exploration and discovery. That it's only by exploring those ranges that we explore ourselves and get to, I guess, have a story in life. And for me, that's a big part of what we're here for. Essentially, the whole gift of being here in the in the finite perspective is to not know, to have the adventure that's possible from not knowing. And in those dualities, we can explore and discover. And that adventure itself is quite a gift.
Awesome.
So some of what we're doing, Susie, go ahead.
So thank you. As the inner development champion, our monsters are why we're here. We're here to put light on them, to love them, to unmonster them with light. So it's a reason why we've come to this planet. This is the school. So as your inner development champion, you got to look at these monsters. You've got to observe them. You can't put them under the bed or sweep them away and blame others for your monsters. These are your monsters. We are reflections of these lower vibrations. It's like an example of looking at a cloud. A cloud at the top has light from the sun, but underneath it is shadow. It's the same cloud. And so these monsters have to be loved. And it's amazing when you actually look at these monsters and you look at them with different eyes and different feelings and say, why are you here, as opposed to chasing them away. You actually change the whole frequency and the whole dynamic of the monsters, and they come back with new identities and new ways as they weave through our lives. So don't shut them away and don't push them away, and just look at them head on, take a deep breath and say, okay, why are you here? I love you. Now let's work together.
Jury.
Yeah, I just said, yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but just one question. Please type a +1 in the chat if you think the world is going insane, or a -1 if you think that it isn't. Okay, why are you doing that? I just say what I think, what I notice. I do believe the world is going insane for a long time. It's a long-term project. So if you point that out, you will probably be branded like I am insane. And I really believe that there is plenty of room for you got to be clinically sane, sorry. Because just because you are paranoid, it doesn't mean that they are not out to get you over.
Gian.
Okay, I'm responding to everyone actually, but it started with, is it Cosina? Cosina, and then Gavin, and then Susie, and then the insane one, Jury. I told this. I just want to tell a quick story, put in context. I've told some of you, like Ferial, you know the story, but it brings to mind the concept of enemies and friends, and it was a story that was shared to me when I lived in Vancouver about my friend a colleague I met who was a soldier during the Lebanese war. And he was relating how one day he was sitting in the middle of the bombed out urban landscape with all the buildings all around, kind of like how Ukraine looks like right now. And it was quiet and he was just sitting there. And all of a sudden he heard some sounds, and it was an enemy soldier who came into the theater. And as he did, he quietly picked up his rifle. He had him in his sights, and then he was about to shoot him. He cocked the trigger of the rifle. And just when he did that, the cocking of the trigger reverberated all over the urban landscape. And the enemy soldier heard it and turned around. And he was in the sights. It was a headshot. So he was just about to shoot him. And then when he turned around, he saw that this enemy soldier looked just like his brother. So in that moment, when it was, war dehumanizes us. The other is the enemy. But when he actually saw something that resembled something that was personal to him, his brother, he couldn't do it. So he just let him go. And the sheer look of terror in that enemy soldier's face transformed to relief when he let him go. So I think what Gavin's saying, we need to have this great adventure. We need to what's the great adventure? The great adventure is to discover that the enemy is like us. We're not as different as we think we are. We're all sacred, in fact. And what's the journey that took that person who we consider the enemy to take that road to now become the leader of the CEO of Exxon Mobil or whatever it is, right? Do we know his personal story? How was he brought up, or she, right? Were they brought up in a context where, when we're born into the world, into life, we don't have any say. It's kind of like birth is authoritarian. We're born into a family and that's it. We're there. Now somebody's born in the Middle East, and somebody's born in South Africa, somebody's born into wealth, somebody's born in poverty. We have no choice. So that person who became the CEO of Exxon probably had no choice because of the culture they brought him up in. There's a scientist named 𝐂𝐭𝐚𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐧 who actually works with people in like Trump territory. And she's a climate scientist, and she gets through to these people because she takes this approach that they're just ordinary people, just like us.
And Cosima?
Yeah, sometimes before going to bed, I used to think about what would I say if I would, for example, meet the president of the United States or somebody else, and how could I connect with that person and actually get to know that person and let down my judgments and just ask this person, how are you doing today? What are you feeling? And just really, try to connect with that person and show that person that we can be peaceful together, and that there is no need to kind of be in a certain way that we are not, that we can be real with each other, that we can be honest with each other and authentic, and that there is no need to fight, but just to connect and to love and to care about each other.
Hey, I'm gonna just say before we go further, because it's starting to sound like there might be a readiness to move to kind of the next act. And keep in mind, there is kind of a goal to this theater thing where we're moving through some different stages of this subject area of extreme polarization. But just before we do, I want to invite anyone to go off mute. And very quickly, if there's anything that's inside you that you want to throw into this hopper, just throw it in, and then we'll move to Act 2. How does that sound?
To keep it short and concise.
Because we've got this thing going for 2 hours, and we do need to allow for some stretch time and whatever. But at the same time, this is an interactive thing. This is fun. So you've all been watching this stuff. If there's anything that somebody, one or a few words you want to throw in, we'll do it now. And if not, that's okay. Okay.
No one's unmuting, so.
And
there's Kian, sorry.
Still up, and if there's something you still want to briefly say right now, but you might be able to take it into the following discussion.
Yeah, is your hand
No,
still
that
up?
was an accident. Sorry, that was an
Okay.
All right, cool. What do you think, Ferial? Everybody, we'll move on now to
Move on, yeah.
Act 2. I think we've really primed the pump here. We're warmed up, and there's a number of themes, and we're going to keep bumping into these themes. So let me say a couple things about Act 2. At this point, we're starting to, we're a group that's coming together to establish some kind of a mission critical initiative effort where we find a common denominator amongst all of this. Not easy to do. This is a big, hairy issue, but let me set the stage for this. Extreme polarization, binary either or ways of approaching big, hairy, systemic problems just keep things stuck. People see their own positions as right. We all do. We all do. Everybody in this room does at some point along the way. Doesn't matter how enlightened we have been on our journey. We all at times feel that we are right from our position. Being right is never enough, and not being wrong doesn't make us right. Let's chew on that one for a moment. We've all been there, and we do these things, and often inadvertently, unconsciously, with the best of intentions, that can feed divisiveness. And those monsters, as Susie in particular pointed out, I mean, they're inside us. They live on and they crop up in some funny ways when we least expected it. So those with opposing views, we sometimes see as wrong, you know, either wrong, evil, or they just haven't seen the light or whatever, however we might, you know, describe them. So we push harder. We got to get through somehow. We push harder, or we disengage and we retreat, and we, you know, or we don't want to interrupt because somebody's on a roll and they're doing their soapbox thing, like maybe I'm already starting to do here. And we've had a lot of this kind of stuff that we do as we try to share our wisdom. Each of us arrive here with our own views, our own lived experience, context, information, knowledge, the things that we hold dear. We're all messy humans, and that's something that we talk about a lot. At some level, we're all ordinary citizens and messy humans at the heart. And so how do we bring this together? So the proverbial elephant and the blind man, we can only see parts of the whole. None of us here can see the whole. So we're here at this early stage, let's say, to form a true coalition, a mission critical coalition. And obviously, with under 2 hours, we don't have time to really pull this whole thing off. So who the hell knows where we'll end up? But it's to get a little taste of what this is like. So we're trying to find some kind of overarching purpose. So let's begin by sharing our views on polarization. The subject doesn't matter, okay? It could be any subject. You could decide that you want to pick a subject, you want to just hero in and dig in on that, or we can just stay with the general subject of extreme polarization. And it really is, it's a matter of what are the most important factors that cause polarization, what needs to happen in order to bridge divides and make progress towards a common purpose. And let's keep it to us here in the room. We're not trying to deal with everybody out there. They're out there. We're a group that's actually trying to do something for real. And we're going to keep taking this forward into Act 3 and 4 and 5 and whatever. So let's pretend that we're actually really, you know, tackling this stuff. There's got to be some kind of a compelling common denominator that might shape our purpose to have an impact ending extreme polarization. In a moment, I'll put these guiding questions in the chat if I can figure out my way to do that, which I think I can. But here they are again, okay? Just this is what I'm hoping we can kind of keep in mind. What are the most important factors that will cause polarization as we try to come to some kind of a common purpose here in this room amongst us? What needs to happen in order to bridge the divides that we start to bump into? The things that are going on between us as we play these various roles that we've taken on in this room. And this is a little theater that we're doing in order to get that common purpose. And is there a compelling common denominator that might shape our purpose to have an impact towards ending extreme polarization? So maybe realistically, coming to some real common denominators, a couple of the key ones might be the most that we achieve in this limited time that we have, which is about 15 minutes. So I'm going to put those things in the chat. I'm going to go off camera for a moment as I do that. If you could just chew on those things and let's go into the discussion. We're trying to zero in on a real mission critical coalition that those of us who've showed up here today and are playing out this thing, we're going to see what we can come up with. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat.
And so while Donna's doing that, maybe I could ask Joseph. Joseph, seeing that you've put things together before, maybe throw in what you think. Oops, you're muted, Joseph. Just unmute yourself. Unmute, Joseph.
Thank you for reminding me.
Just all the actors make yourself unmuted, please.
So the time has come now. We've been past few minutes working out how monstrous the world is, now we'll have to work, to dream, to see all these constants are removed or done away with, and how we can build a system where every concern which was raised here can be addressed successfully. Now, perhaps I think there is a better way of looking at things, the way being shared. And what I would say is that it is not only the system change is required, the structure change is also required. And the individual thinking process has to be changed and all that. So I think it will be a good exercise if we can just, go through still more deeper on this, so that we all of us, have something on it very concretely, going through into us.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully this helps us maybe do something like this in the future. We could do it across a whole day, because I think that would be exciting, and to actually see what comes out of this, right? But now we're just kind of going through it faster to show what we could actually do if we took this process. So who wants to share next?
Gavin's got his hand up.
Okay, sorry. Gavin, go.
Yeah, if I was to just take a quick fly at those questions, I mean, the most important factors for me in terms of what caused polarization is basically human consciousness, and the fact that we are separate both from each other and from the truth of reality, and have to kind of get at it, and discover it. And so where we are coming at from might lead us to totally different answers to some coming from somewhere else, but we do have an inner commitment to truth and a belief in it. And so long as we are, holding to our truth, then there's every reason we might disagree with someone else who's totally genuinely committed to some other truth that is just from a different place. So I think the fact that we don't have answers, that we have a limited perspective, that we will always cause a polarization because we're not certain what happens to bridge those divides, to make progress towards a common purpose. I think we actually need to start with the common purpose in order to bridge the divide, because if we can at least agree on what we want and what's necessary, then we can at least say, okay, you might have a different idea of how we get there, but perhaps let's go together, see what happens, and let life show us which is the right way, and not get too angry if we hit a wall or two, because we know that's going to happen, but that very rarely happens. Is there a common denominator that might shape our purpose to have an impact towards ending extreme polarization? I think I think I'll leave that and maybe think about it.
Somebody else might. I'm sure Susie has that answer. Go for it, Susie.
Okay, so following Gavin, I certainly believe that to have part of this personal development and developing oneself as with consciousness is the awareness that we are one. So we are all aspects. If we're one and we're all pixels of a one, everyone has their own individual part and role to play in this big, glorious experience called life. And when you acknowledge that, and when you receive that, then you can look at someone else and say, no matter whether you agree with them or not, or whether it's because there is no right or wrong, you can go, wow, interesting point of view. And that's what I find works so beautifully, when you can actually hear someone, acknowledge them. Interesting point of view, you've got that point of view, even if you're not in agreement. Everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone deserves to be seen and acknowledged. So I love using in my story and in my encounter with people, wow, interesting point of view, because you're an aspect of me that is sharing this from an experience that you're having. It's not my story, it's just me to take the time to acknowledge you. So I acknowledge all of you, and wow, interesting point of views. Like, really, it's fascinating learning all about aspects of myself. Thank you.
And Artie.
Hands are up.
Yes. So I think I quite agree with Susie, and somewhere from this, the single
person acknowledgement. I think the whole idea has to grow into the, as fantastical as it sounds, this whole one world concept has to emerge. I mean, we cannot disassociate from this idea any longer. And I think the very fact that all of us have converged into this 24-hour meet, somewhere we have to shape, what this, working template can look like of the one world order. And I think that's where we are, headed in terms of defining what could be these guiding principles. What can they look like? And when we say the one world order, maybe it's going to have a shelf life till we evolve it into something better. And I think 𝐂𝐸ℵ is something possibly a step in that direction, a better structure in terms of its functionality, in terms of actually performing that action. So yeah, possibly something to that effect.
Jerry.
Yeah, just suggesting that consider time, consider the long now, consider that, as Gian said, I always thought that, but never had the words, that every moment is sacred. As soon as you adopt this view, there is a criteria. Is what you do rules out future possibilities or not? Because intelligence, what we need is to consider things so that maximize future choices. That is inherent, that this is not a matter of opinion. If you don't do that, you're done. Over.
Cosima.
Yeah, I think a common denominator could be the experiencing of aliveness or existence, and instead of trying to fight difference, to honor difference and build upon the collective strengths. And maybe some things just have to decompose naturally. So not always fight the things that are not working, but that maybe if we build upon the strengths, things can naturally decompose and grow into the oneness. And yeah, the question is, how can we move as one while still being authentic and sovereign selves?
So looking at nature. Gavin.
Yeah.
So also riffing off what Cosima was saying in some sense, if I were to put a one word on that common denominator that I think we can all agree on is well-being, a world of well-being in which the environment is well, in which our lives are well. And for me, though, there is something that we are talking about and talking about in different ways, which is that there is a truth of sacredness, as Gian was saying, underneath everything. And if there is this unity, if there is this conscious, then alignment with that truth is what it is to be well. And that moving against it will cause dissonance. I know we were talking about the laws of nature last night, and it's the same thing. So long as we aren't in alignment with the truth of reality, then we will not be well. So coming into that, and it's very easy to see in people's lives. I mean, we might not get it in a moment, but over the course of a few years, as you get to know yourself, as you get to pursue a course, you do feel when you're out of alignment or not, and when you're struggling, when you're stressed, and when you're not healthy, and when you're not. And we see it in the people around us, and we see it in our environment, and we see it in our businesses. And a willingness to just recognize when we are out of that alignment and when it's not well anymore, I think will help us come into alignment. But it is, I think, something everyone can agree on, that everyone wishes for their friend, for their neighbor, for the people they care about, that they were able to live a life where they have what they need to eat, where they're able to pursue the things that make them, truly happy, to purpose, especially when I say not, confusion of like, oh, if I have a big yacht, I'll be happy. But, finding what's really in the heart, what really is one's purpose. And if we all had that, the ability to go out every day and pursue our purpose, to do the work that brings us joy, to do things that bring towards us the goals that we really recognize, then we'd have a much, much better world. And I think between us, then the environment would be healthy, everything would be well. But that thing of a well-being world, it might require discovery to understand exactly what it is, but I think that's the common denominator that everyone unless you really do believe that everyone else is a monster and that they don't deserve to be well, which is unfortunate. I'm sure those people are out there, but most sane people can agree on that, I believe.
Awesome. Joseph.
Yeah, I want to add to all these good suggestions with one word, that is compassion. Compassion towards people, towards any living thing, all living things, and towards non-living things, towards the planet, towards everything. And if this basic instinct of compassion is being built in every individual human being, then I think the world will be the best place to live in, perhaps in the whole universe. Yeah. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Gian?
Okay, ripping off everyone against. I'm not ripping everybody off. I'm ripping everyone off. That just came into my mind. We've been working in Stop Recycle. We've been working on a praxis for a number of years called an open source praxis called Deep Humanity, and at the core of Deep Humanities is concept of not common denominator, but common human denominator, CHD, common human denominator. So it's a kind of a project to have crowdsource start with a certain, like say in this group, what we find as common denominators between human beings, because you have to have that common ground to bridge to the other side so that we have we can discuss things. And so it's kind of like an open source process in which some initial group will found those common human denominators, and then we workshop it all over the world, and we just keep refining until we have a well-refined set of common human denominators, and that becomes the kind of the fertile ground in which compassion can grow, because compassion is really kind of recognizing the sacredness of all being. If you recognize all beings, all living beings and all non-living beings as sacred, then you will have compassion for them. You will connect with them.
Okay, Donna, could I just round up all the stuff that they said? And then if we can come up with that, what is that shared thing now, once you've heard the words, right? So if there's a few of you that want to like put into the pot, what is that thing that you can all come together around, okay? So the words that you've given was sacred. You gave wellness, or that wealthy, WELL, wealthy society, collaboration, natural flow, compassion, empathy, and then deep humanity. These were some of the words that came out. And Uri wants to share something.
A substitute river, the connection got lost. He wrote to me in some other, and I feel I want to add something, but I think something that is there, but maybe not spoken about, the earth as a denominator or something we all touch the ground with. And just adding to this, human is also the non-human, like Gain was saying, and how maybe the sacredness of life and the well-being, the natural well-being that comes for just being on this planet is maybe something that right now it seems hard for everyone to accept, but maybe that's something we can, going forward, can embrace. And as we see our well-being as something that is connected with the earth that we touch, that we share, then we might have this purpose. Maybe it was just under our feet the whole time. And also it connects with our well-being, because we are, like many people have shown, gain so much well-being from being in nature and just being present. Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to jump in for a moment here, Ferial, because I think we've all been listening. Okay. And for all of us here, there may be just a couple that are coming out as the most central ones. You were listening and you shared what you were hearing. But this next stage that we're moving to, that you're going to kind of lead, Ferial, is really taking as much as we can, and it's hard, but it's a bit of a funnel. If we were to come together around a couple of common denominators based on what we've all heard here, because in a real coalition, we would have to come together around some stuff, recognizing there might be other work to do at other points in time, but let's just say that this would be the focus for as we go forward. Do we have a sense of what those might be? And that will help us shape that next act that we're taking us all through. And I'd say anybody go off mute around that. What rises up for you around this is a group, we're going to be going ahead with some mission critical coalition work. And we've now had this conversation where we've thrown a whole bunch of stuff in the pot, but we're going to hero in and zero in on just a couple of things that have come through for the next stage. Are there some that stand out?
Donna, compassion for me was the big standout. And in personal development, you've got to have compassion for self first before you can externalize compassion. To understand, to give compassion is to, you've got to receive it for yourself and understand what it is and feel full compassion for who you are as a being on this planet, in this time, in this moment. And compassion is one of the biggest keys, if not the key, that will heal this world. But you've got to fully be compassionate for everything about your being and forgiveness for who you are in order to connect with anyone and anything outside. So compassion, huge, huge, huge.
Okay, so you've just made the case for, hey, we could go forward with that as the kind of the container of a mission. Other people, are there others that you're pulled toward, or would you want to wrap yourself around that one? Because imagine we're in a group where we'd have to sort of come to some place where we'd say, okay, we're going to go forward with this one primarily and unpack it.
I'd put in the wellness thing as a alternative, in the sense that the common human denominators and the common non-human denominators. What is it that is a wellness for all, for everything, not just people, but for this globe? And that seems to be, if we can really answer that, then I think we could find our common purpose in that.
Yeah,
So
I just say,
go ahead.
I think Sharon pointed to it. He had a long list in his commitments. These are all things that needs to be flipped, because everything we have is wrong. It's none of those things that he was listing. I don't want to go through the whole list. Just pointy thing that this is the bit that I'm familiar with. Everything in tech we have is wrong, as is, and the original clinical sane person, Donna Nelham, been saying it for 50 years. In fact, 30 years ago, he said the future of the web is in his path. And now we are at a point where we were maybe going where he was 50 years ago. So that's my bit. The important thing is, again, this is referring back to the earlier talk, that it's not just decentralization we need. We need interpersonal connectivity. What we have is wrong. Anyhow, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? We know that this is a little artificial. It is all of it. And we also know that when we give something a label, we invariably end up kind of going into all kinds of different things that are really part of it. So it's cool. Whatever we go with is going to be fine at the next stage. So really, it's sort of a question to go forward. Are we comfortable enough that we've got a couple of things that we can work with? And maybe just a show of hands in this room here of, yeah, we've got enough that we can go forward. Or is there something inside you that's saying, wait a minute, this feels more overarching for me as a critical mission that would be an umbrella for what we're going to do next? Good with what we've got? If you are, just, with your hand or with the the thing.
𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜𝐭𝐚 and RT has something to add.
Okay.
No, I wanted to, I'm good with continuing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
good.
maybe, one thing that I just thought about is that we all have something that we care about deeply. I think everybody in the world has that. And if we can focus on, what do we actually care about? Is it our family? a pet, our friend, something in nature, and then maybe we can find the love through that, to things we care about, and that doesn't have to be the same for everyone.
And Artie, did you want to say something?
No, I think we're good with the list for now.
Okay.
Keep adding to it. Yeah.
So what are you giving me, Donna? What is your roundup of the big thing that I can take into the next act?
Well, I've just put some stuff in the chat there as I was listening to people, and this next stage it's like we're going to the next. What is the next? I'm trying to put that in front of me. I haven't got it in front of me. Hang on. You got it in front of you? What's Act 3? We're going to Act 3, and actually, people, just if you haven't, stand up, stretch, breathe while we're getting our act together. Because we've been sitting for a while.
So Act 3 is becoming purposeful together
Okay.
to help the group define parameters of our purpose as agreed at Act 2 and address the monsters that will try to stop us.
Okay. All right. So this group is now at a stage where we've fleshed out a whole bunch of stuff. It's been a divergent sort of process of sharing. None of this is going to feel complete. That's cool. But we want to get a little more purposeful now. We want to zero in a little bit more on some things. And it looks like compassion and wellness for all, for all of humanity. Recognizing that kind of relates to most everything, but to bring it to some kind of more focused, purposeful coalition for this group to tackle. So you could say, well, let's pick some. Imagine we've got some part of the world that we're going to bring this stuff into. What are some things that we can begin to do and to shape that with a little bit more granularity. I think does that set you up enough, Ferial, to go forward?
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
All right.
So bearing in mind who you are, your roles, bearing in mind what you've just given us, right? So what Donna had put in the chat was these common denominators of compassion and wellness for all, that it's all of it, everything. And Jury said, all of it is wrong, right? And one of the big things he's saying for us to push in on is interpersonal connectivity. And when he's saying it's wrong, it doesn't mean it's not useful for us. It's saying it's not the overarching thing, right? So the question is interpersonal connectivity. Let's think about that and think about compassion in that context. Think about wellness and all the other words that you gave in that context of interpersonal connectivity. So I want to just set a stage for us for this next act. And I want to, share some things with you that you can use as a backdrop for when we have this discussion together. So hopefully, Donna, can you, because I've now got my screen share, could you now play my role as in when they're popping up and who's got their hands up and things like that, if you don't mind.
Yep. So
did you know that we are a species that is born altricial? Now, you might not know what that means. Some of you in the room, I know that, but it means, unlike other species, when we arrive on this planet, we cannot actually do much of anything for ourselves, right? We just go, and so forth. So we have to rely on others to help us do everything we need to survive. So being born like this might seem kind of inefficient, right? But Mother Nature might just be super smart because having to depend on others facilitates us to build these incredible bonds with, number one, our first other, right? The first one, other, mother. And then all the others that come after that. Like they say, it takes a village. So this process of growing up and maturing induces the concept and supports the belief that if I bond or relationship with others, they help me survive. And it is precisely this idea that we then take forward throughout our lives thereafter. It is the very thing that helped us become this dominant species on the planet, right? Because we have been able to form relationships that have supported us to harness our superpower of ding, 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 collaboration. Now, this collaboration helped us to build tools and technologies. But over time, due to traumatic experiences and our individual capacities being enhanced through these technologies and experiences, and it's ironic because it's this very same technologies we built that started letting us feel like we can be more independent from others, right? We don't really need others so much. We don't really live in such tight communities anymore. And I can take care of myself. We live in kind of an illusion of I'm independent. But I want to ask us a question. Are we? Are we independent? Think about the people that go and live out there in the sticks and set up their little commune or something, and they want to have nothing to do with the world. Are they truly independent from others? So a question I ask is this an illusion? And if yes, then let's talk about this. Let's consider this. And then while you're thinking about considering this, it might be that we become too big for our boots, right? Is this indeed an illusion, a myth we have begun to believe? And yet, I want to point you to the fact that babies are still being born ultra-kill, suggesting that nature refuses to be complicit with our ideas because it possibly feels that this digression is a violation of nature if we believe ourselves to be so independent, right? So this unhelpful, ineffective learned behavior is resulting in us not investing deeply into building our human and interbeing relationships. So I don't want to go any further than that because I want you to to flesh this out a bit more now, right? Because that's what Jury said. Jury said interpersonal relationships, interbeing with each other and with the world and with all the other beings. So let's talk about that.
Sorry, Ferial, we've had this conversation, and what we know is that really lights you up. The relationships and the interpersonal stuff is what lights you up. And maybe it lights up everybody in this room. And maybe there's some other things that light people up in this room. And that's some of the reality when we come together in a coalition is we've got our own particular fractal lens that we kind of bring to this, but we're trying to crunch it down a bit at this point. So having heard all of this stuff, what are we going to do about it, folks? What's that common purpose? Open it up, unmute,
and share.
Yeah. And a moment of silence is okay.
Okay. Inner development champion says and has experienced in my own pixel absolutely when we come down to this earth, we are born, and we are clearly the only species who, how long does it take for us to walk? How long does it take for us to feed ourselves compared to nature? And as we grow, we totally become dependent on our other to nurture us, to feed us, to love us, until we are able to look after ourselves. And from experience and observing what is happening or what is a normal progression of society and of humanity, is that we tend to become codependent. And so we get lost and entangled in ourselves, wrapped up in everybody else's stories and environments, without having the way or the means to actually learn that we are my words are coming. is that we are not independent, but we are independent, not dependent, but we are dependent, depending on where we are at. But when you realize that beings ourselves are, what are the words I'm trying to say? We're all one, but we have to stand in our own story. We have to stand and learn. So I believe in the personal development side of things is that the being has not been taught that they are their own being. They are their own independent energetic source, and that the lost in translation of weaving and entanglements and codependency and depending on others and blaming others and pointing fingers on others is what is happening on our earth. And until we actually realize, hang on a second, I am an independent source of energy in my own being, and taking all that energy back, and then how can I use my independence to be that dependent? I'm now dependable because I'm now responsible for my own being in the co-creation of how I can contribute. So the beings are lost. Beings have been lost in this entanglement with each other. And what is happening now is people are realizing actually we can stand on our own, and we are on our own, and it's okay to be on your own. And that is how we are, to bring it all back to self. It sounds like it's being selfish, but you're actually being selflessly selfish of harnessing your own being.
I'm going to interrupt you at this point because this is all really good, rich grist for the mill, and that's your truth, okay? And at this point, we are a coalition. Gavin, you've got your hand up here. How do we start to do this kind of stuff, or what are the things that we feel we need to do to bring some of this stuff to ground? So we're no longer at this stage telling each other this is what we need to do. How are we going to start to form and come together? Because we start out as very individual, and when we're trying to build some kind of initiative, and as we move along, we're building some common ground. Not easy. So Gavin, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. Forgive me, but I'm also recognizing this is what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. Keep going, Gavin, and then 𝐂𝐿𝐴.
So obviously, I guess we tell ourselves the stories that we all do live. So I'm totally with Yuri and with Suzanne and others that we start by healing our own insanity, but then we do seek others. Then we start finding those who we also, our evocentric community, to quote Ferial in the Stop, Reset, Go motto. We do need to find people we can collaborate with, and because also our environment is so much informing us, and we do have to find those healthy environments. And then as we find each other, we do have to start building trust, and we do have to find forums like this where we can speak and grow the connection and learn to work together and learn how we trigger each other and talk through all that stuff and heal, really work in the relationship level. Until we can journey together and deal with our triggers together and grow past our misunderstandings and perceptions, we don't get anywhere. So we do that. And then we start building the institutions and things that can perpetuate healthy relationship and can perpetuate healthy ways of being. And, once we have healthy institutions and a healthy communities, then I think we're already halfway there, at least.
I'm going to interrupt for a moment just to plug something in here. We all come with our stories, and we've said we somehow have to connect as a way to go forward. So if any of you have a little snippet of a story that comes from inside your heart that's helped you or that you wrestle with around bringing some of this stuff to ground, share it briefly, because this is real. Now we're trying to actually create these conditions within this coalition so that we can actually move forward and move beyond the just telling each other this is what it should be, this is what it could be, hypothetically this is what it might be. This is real work. Let's say the world is going to blow up and we need to get on with some stuff. So how are we actually doing it, folks? And it's just a play. So 𝐂𝐿𝐴, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had something similar to say, like Gavin. I thought about that we need to go out into our communities and families, and we need to spread the word of what we are doing here. And yeah, I have a little story to share because my family has a very different mindset than I have, but they're the ones who are most closest to my heart. So my question is, how can I invite them to a discussion like this? How can I bring them to the table of speaking about how can we make the world a better place? So my question is, can we go into our neighborhoods, into the people, and meet the people that we see on the streets and that we meet at our workplace where we normally would not speak about these things? Can we dare to open up the talk and to speak about changing the world and making the world a better place if it is not something that we would normally used to do? You know, when we sit with our families at the table, or when we, you know, just do our normal life, can we speak about the things that go deeper than the normal small talks that we usually have?
So that's beautiful. I'd like to just interject there. So what we're doing here is this process this one thing that we're doing in real life could be for 6 months, could be for 3 months, and we're obviously boxing it. So this is really good because now you're thinking of ideas that can actually go out and how you're actually making that, what you're feeling and what you're thinking, granular. So beautiful. Uri, you wanted to share something?
Yes, I'm still with these words from the round before about care, and we all care about something. But the challenge that I feel as a weaver is that I found that sometimes we even cause harm with the pretext of care because we care for different things. or sometimes the same thing, like in the story of 𝐂𝐻𝐸, like we care about our brother, and I've been a soldier, and I know that what brought me to say yes to something that I didn't want to say yes to was this idea that somehow by doing that, I'm actually showing care to my own people or to my own family. Then, finding like that story, that the other side is not really so different. That was a big shock. Trying to arrive to the point, I think, as we go deeper into care and we see our connectedness to life, and that those small things that we care about are connected to this bigger care that we have been given. And I go back to this idea of Earth and the Mother Earth, the Mother Earth, as a possibility that I still feel is an opportunity for us. Even the great damages that we have caused the ecosystems we depend on is an opportunity right now to find a shared purpose. And I keep feeling that we like challenges as human beings, we like challenges, and we're creating a puzzle. And the puzzle is the destruction actually we're causing to the ecosystem. But I feel there is an opportunity here to come together, and that's what I like to propose here.
Keep going. Thank you. Hands are up, just go ahead.
Yeah. At one point of time, I saw while waiting for a cab that there were these students, little children, in fact, waiting for their school bus to arrive. They were listening to a fight between cab drivers, where these cab drivers were abusing each other in choicest of words. And all I thought was, who's going to debrief these little children about the language that they're listening to? And they're going to carry this language in their head and actually internalize it as something which is normal. And this was a very small incident. And I normally interact with a lot of such children who witness violence, crime, and there's nobody to debrief them. And then I thought of, how can we create a system where somebody engages with these children and speaks to them and understands them and debriefs them, so that those experiences are not internalized, but they can rise above these experiences and understand that behavior is something that can be channelized through the experience and the environment that they're a part of. So we created a system of interaction where we map their experience across 60 parameters, documented, and then there's a certain profiling and a reporting system that's created where we debrief the child, the parent, the extended family, and the classroom and the teacher. So we create an ecosystem for these children to actually, disband these feelings that they acquire because of these experiences. And this is the level of intervention that is required, at a level where people, while they're growing up, and I would not say children anymore, I would say people, because eventually that's who they become. They need to be addressed at such a level because, again, I keep coming back to that they become citizens at the end of the day, driving the world. So I think a template or a system, a way of approaching conversations, experiences, something like this has to be expanded. And I know I've been working on this for the last 7 years. I've involved departments of psychology. I've involved psychologists who are certified, and I've actually trained them on the system, and they've gone out, worked across districts in India. So as of today, this program runs in about 7 states across the country. I've got about 30,000 beneficiaries.
Adi, if I can just interject, this is in our next part, right? So I want you to really bring this in a bigger way there, because you've now introduced it here. So we can go on to Gavin and then bring it into Act 4, because now we're going to get impacty and real, and what could it look like? Right, Gavin?
Well, my short answer to Donna's initial point, in terms of how to get real, is simply that we do need a common objective, just something that we can set out towards, because every story basically has an objective and then an internal journey, and going towards that external thing will always help force you to deal with what's happening on the internal level. But only by journeying together do we really start sorting things out and start having to work through things and come together. And if we had one objective that we could all agree on, then we could start working together, and whatever we figured out, we'd figure out along the way. But that's when we can really get practical. And until then, we're just talking.
So going back to your words, you talked about the fact that you wanted to create something that was inducing interpersonal relationship, that was encouraging that towards this wellness society, right? So is that something, again, coming back to that, without the practical things, that we're saying, yay, that's what we want? Is that something we want? Show of hands. Okay, cool. That means let's go in that direction. We want to work on something that is encompassing the compassion and all these other things that we talk about, the deep humanity aspects and the sacredness, but it is essentially about the interpersonal relationships that will produce the wellness. This is what we're saying.
And what I've heard from everybody here is, let's bring it to ground. And I think 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐬 was the one that brought that up first, around how do we take this into our neighborhoods with all of those threads. So we're not taking on the whole world. So let's say that this coalition is about, neighborhood, could be any place, anywhere. And so the next stage is going to end up being a generation of all the various ideas, building on some of the things that have been started here. Everybody okay with that as the play that we're playing with here?
Yeah.
At the stage of our navigation. That makes sense? Okay, are we ready to move to that?
If we can move to Act 4, that'd be great. And Joseph's hands was up, so I suggest we start with him.
Yes, Joseph.
As in, how do we move now into Act 4? Act 4, so just before we go into it, Act 4 is about getting impacting, co-creative, right? Imagining that we are actually doing this for real and that we are running out of time, because that's the other thing, right? We are physically running out of time, so we got to be fast, and we are also running out of time in the world, which means we got to be strategic about this sucker. So Joseph, was he in and out? Okay, they unmute. So all the actors, please keep yourself unmuted.
Yeah. Sorry, this is my weakness. I forgot to. Okay, fine. Thank you very much, Ferial. And as the discussion is going on, as I see that we'll have to go to the next part of imagining, of this, creating this interpersonal relationships, connectivity, and all that. And that's what we are doing for past 30 years in the name of neighborhood parliaments and in the name of children parliaments, and about which I'll be talking elaborately at least for half an hour or 20 minutes, 25 minutes in the later sessions, where we have proved to the world having a structure at the neighborhood level for every individual, even the last person to participate actively, constructively, positively, then the whole thing can be addressed successfully. Whatever may be the problem, whether poverty, terrorism, or hatred, violence, whatever you think of, environmental issues, anything, we have proved it that this can bring a change. So this is because of that discussion, what is going on in the chat, that we'll have to start with children, start from the neighborhood. We are doing it for past 30 years. We are doing it, and we are now spread out to many countries. So I am so happy to share about this little more in detail in the coming sessions, just to introduce the subject. So we are at it, and I'm so happy that so many people here, those who are here, are thinking in the same direction. Thank you very much.
Joseph, before you go, so can you make it in 1 or 2 minutes practical? What does it do? And because remember, we are now forming a new coalition. We're trying to do something. So what are you suggesting we can physically do?
My personal suggestion is every individual who is convinced about it, start from his neighborhood. That's all.
Okay, that is what we're doing next. We are a coalition. We're going into some neighborhood, Zippity-doo-dah neighborhood. And we're going forward to now really generate a whole bunch of ideas and strategies. We've already primed the pump. There's a few that have come up. Joseph, you've got some based on some things that have actually been demonstrated. Other people have seen some things. Other people are dreaming about things that have never happened, that gosh, it's time for us to move on with this and to get some breakthroughs. That's what we're moving into now. Ferial, let's take it.
Right, Artie, you had an idea earlier. So remembering what Joseph said about his neighborocracy and what Cosima said about taking it to our families, bring it home for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, do you want me to elaborate a little more on what I was talking about?
Give us something that now don't think of your context, think of here. We're a coalition. We're going to do something. Tell us with all the other stuff that is in the backdrop now that we've did for all the
So I think
what can it look like?
a lot of mapping.
I'm jumping in just for a moment. It's a bit of a brainstorm. So we don't need to spend each of us a whole bunch of time at length. It's to get the ideas out, because what we want to do is get a whole bunch of ideas out. So it's a brainstorm. Go ahead, Artie.
Right. So I think a lot of mapping needs to be done in terms of what are those impact parameters that can be shortlisted. What are those areas that are low hanging in terms of creating a narrative, creating some kind of advocacy, getting people. Building that language of communication. I think all of those things have to be really charted out, mapped out, and really put together so that we create that language, that communication, first of all, to start with. Based on that, I think there has to be action plans, definitely. It has to have, I would say, a rather traditional structure, but with strong impact language that one needs to go out with.
I'm going to stop you there. You can come back in anytime, but let's keep going so that we get everybody kind of going on stuff. Great. Thank you.
Who's next? Who wants to go next? Joseph.
Yeah. Now, what I suggested earlier is at the individual level. But as a collective level, here we are working on various spaces and various levels. So we can form a group of whoever is here as a core group who can connect with various other organizations, whoever is already doing something similar to this, so that a strong network can be created, and our mutual interests and mutual experiments and the mutual experiences can be shared with everyone, and start supporting each other to bring a solid system, a structure which can be created so that even the last person in the society is involved in the process, which we are already at it. So we can, I think that is my humble suggestion, that we form a group, a core group at the global level, whoever is here and interested, or whoever is not here also. There are many other people, those who are interested in this, who are not here. So we can identify them and, put them all together into one single group who can steer the whole thing like organizing seminars, organizing continuous training, doing follow-up, preparing action plans, and giving support, giving guidance, that and this, all can be shared so that in a massive way, this is spread everywhere, all over.
Awesome. Uri's just putting some notes first in the chat. You can check it out. Who wants to go next? Anything else you want to throw in that part?
I would like to suggest activities for young people that foster their creative abilities and the abilities to take care of Mother Earth and to connect with each other. Because yeah, I think that at the moment, a lot of young people are experiencing boredom, fatigue, eco-anxiety. And if we can create a loving community around that with activities that foster synergies, that will also help to create the leaders of the future. And if we go to communities that are more marginalized, then we can also empower them even more.
Awesome. So those listening in the kind of in the gallery, we're saying, watch the process. If you've been here all along, watch the process we're taking them through, because this is the same process when we are pulling together things out there, big initiatives you want to be going through, right? But we're just doing it a lot faster, like in a container, but it should normally be done a lot longer. But this is a good process that we found it works, right? So anybody else that wants to pop in and add more into that? What it can look like. Okay, have we exhausted?
No, I think at a neighborhood level, if we're working at a neighborhood level, I think there has to be a common space, physical space where everybody has to, it has to be a 24/7 open space for people to always be present and be in and out. I think that is going to energize people to always be active and stay active and be passionate about it. Because a limiting time-bound space is something that's going to create a restriction. So I think because this is something going to be something new at a neighborhood level, it has to be something fun, something 24/7.
Awesome. So local, right? From all of this global thinking, we're going to go totally local where it's accessible. Great. Anybody else? If we're finished exploring what it can now look like, because I think we got a good picture here. Anybody else? We just want to make sure that all the other actors get a chance to put their coin in. And if you're happy with what it's looking like, we're going to move on, and I'm going to hand over for Act 5.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah. Just I didn't know what this meeting is. I've just turned up, but I think what we with Gian and others we've been working on is that kind of technology, sort of interpersonal, people-centered, not just decentralized, that would facilitate that. So hopefully we will come back with something that works soon. Yeah. So
awesome. Now that's real life, but in here we're saying, yes, what Jury's saying is we also have to have that other aspect, that digital aspect that helps us do this, because we're going to be local, but we're also going to be connected globally, right? So thank you very much. Let's put that in there, please, in the chat. Anybody else needs that? Anything else that we need to, that our initiative is going to look like? Are we good? So we've got our local, we've got our global kind of team, and then we've got our digital aspect to all of this. And Cosima also put into that, we're going to have a focus on young people because they are the ones that carry that thread through, right? When you get to them, you don't have to put on all the plasters later on that you have to do with us that already have all that ingrained crap-a-neo going on. So, all right, great. So are we good to move on to the next phase?
I'll just add one last thing, which is just that you would need media and perhaps a broadcasting of this thing as it goes.
Our storyteller is in there. We're going to need a media aspect. We're going to communicate. We're going to have to communicate this to the world, right? So great, put that in. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to hand over. Oh, Donna, yes.
No, it's part of the handover. So I'm freaking fracking with you. Sorry. We're moving this through, and we're going to be a little bit tight for time as well, but I think we're good. It really is to take what I think has been established here is that kind of work as a coalition has got to be brought to ground in very real ways. And so we've now chosen that we're going to do it in a neighborhood, and we're going to bring in all these various ideas, and there'll be others that we build. We're going to need roles, and we're going to need places, and we're going to need technology, and we're going to need to get young people involved. Like all this stuff is cooking and all part of this. So now, Uri, as you take us to this next stage where you're kind of projecting some outcomes at this point, right? So looking at it in multimodal ways, imagining the potential impact outcomes that this will achieve as we in fact deliver this stuff. That would be great if you could lead this next act. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, and I will ask Ferial to take my weaver.
I will be the
substitute
weaver
position.
now.
You already have it in your name, so that worked well. Yeah, I want to try something completely different with this act, and you know, we talked a lot and used a lot our you know, our brains, minds, and spirits and hearts. I invite us to explore this outcome through our bodies. So the invitation would be, and if you're already a role or either you're not a role, that's also okay. You might have here some lunch happening here in my place. If you feel like opening your unmuting, you can do that. And we're going to imagine that we're living in this world, in the future of the world that we want to create, and where polarization is not an issue in the same way that it is right now. So extreme polarization is not an issue as it is right now. And as you enter this world together, as we enter this world, how does my body move in that world? How does it feel to be in that world? And I invite you to just feel that as in the body, you know, what it means to live in that world right now, here. And as you are in this body, you can start by sitting or standing or whatever is possible for you. Just what does the body do in this world? How is it? How is the posture? How is my breathing in this world? How do I relate to the space, to the physical space around me? And if you can, and it's possible for you to stand up or move around in the space, you're invited to do that as well. And move in that world, in this future world we have created. Just seeing alternating movement and stillness. So just some moments of being still and then seeing movement and seeing what the body wants to do in this world. As I notice my body and my space, my physical space, I can also notice other beings that are in my space. Could be human beings, could be plant being, animal beings. I'm also connected with them. How do I relate to other beings in this world? And we're also connected virtually from different parts of the world. So how do I relate to other beings in this world? How do I move in relationship? Again, alternating movement and stillness, seeing what the body wants to do. When I'm still, I just notice how does it feel to be in a still position. When I move, I'm just curious of what's happening. Going to do that for another about 2 minutes. And again, if you feel like interacting with the screen and also kind of peeping into these other screens, you can do that. Maybe there is a gesture that you like, and you can take that.
Little time check here.
Yeah, we're going to do that for another minute and maybe finding an ending together for a little play. Seeing, like creating a shared image, a shared ending of an exploration of the future world, right? I can find a position or ending position. From this ending position, I feel there is a word or world that wants to be shared. I can share that. In service of life together. Where I share my word, I can also resolve my image. And if you feel like sharing your word, you can either unmute or write in the chat.
Embrace.
I have 2 words, mycelium network.
Connect and co-create.
We have trust, unearthed, connect and co-create, gratitude, peace. Embrace mycelium network. So thank you, everyone. And reminding us the sacredness of life, gratitude. And I pass it to our witness, observer, Andy, for the reflection part. It was a bit shorter, we're kind of condensed, but what I really love about the body that it doesn't need a lot of time to do that. So thank you for kind of letting exploring this.
Before we go into the next one of the big ones was love. That was one last one. Donna shared love. This is kind of big, right? And Andy was sitting in the background. Those of you who wouldn't have known this, Andy was sitting in the background all the time, watching our process, watching us, listening to what we're sharing. And he's about to help us now reflect on this experience together. And if you think about it, it was kind of messy. It was kind of all over the place. So kind of, okay, what are we doing? Judy said he just landed up here, all this kind of stuff. But this is a reflection of real life. There is no script. We're making it up as we go. So, Andy.
Okay, so believe it or not, I'm really nervous, strangely, because you guys have been on stage and it's been great watching you being on stage, and now I've kind of came up onto stage. I'm kind of like, oh, what if I fail? So the first point I want to raise specifically, Donna, is because Steve wasn't here, right? And the whole point was Stephen was going to do this thing at the start, but what none of you were witness to was that, I think it was yesterday, Stephen said, oh, we're going to fail, right? But this is just going to fail and it's going to fall flat in its face, but let's do it anyway. So right away, right at the very beginning, the person that was, in a sense, holding this together disappeared, right? So that was the first thing that you guys didn't see. So I just want a show of hands or something. Did this event work for you? That's all I need to know. Just put your hands up or whatever. Did it work for you? So would you agree that it didn't fail? Keep your hands up or put your hands up if you agree it didn't fail, right? So okay, on behalf of all the participants, thank you to Donna and Ferial for picking this up and running with it. You did an amazing job, and your audience and your actors and your characters would say that you didn't fail. So let's just take a moment to say thank you for all the work that went into doing this, because again, I think part of being an interbeing is actually recognizing the other parts that we take for granted. Okay, so if you can do that. Then the second thing that I want you to think about is the characters. So thank you to all the characters who stepped into the role, sometimes at seconds notice, and played the role so magnificently. So thank you for that. So I just want to give you some observations. The first observation is actually about me, that I started taking loads and loads of notes. I was taking huge numbers of notes in Act 1, and then Act 2 a little bit fewer, and then Act 3 a little bit fewer than that in Act 4, because I did feel that there was this convergence, and it seemed to be that there was less need to kind of highlight certain things. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Andy, I just want to say one thing. Kimberly in the chat, she wasn't in the whole experience, but she was watching it, and I was watching her all the way through, and she's saying, thank you everyone for this beautiful experience with a whole range of emotions and practicalities. And those of us that were enacting, I want to say, remember, we are always being watched. Right?
Yeah.
Others are learning from us.
Okay, so there's some learning I think we can take. There's a lot of learning we can take away from this, but one of them was I noticed somebody changing their title, and then somebody said, could we change your title? And I deliberately put observer to see if anybody would notice it, and if it did notice it, if that would change any behavior. So what I'm proposing is, over the next wee while, I'll try and write out a list of questions and pass it between Ferial and Donna and Stephen. And then what I'd really appreciate is if we could send that out to you, both the audience and the characters, just because if you think this was worthwhile, is it something that we should maybe repeat some other time? And if we are, let's get some feedback and learning from it. Yeah, so I've got about 11 or 12 questions already, but I'm sure we can come up with more. One of the key things that I'll just run through some of the questions that I felt that we could answer is, did you enjoy this and did you feel energized by it? So as a session, did it energize you? Did you feel engaged? Right, that's a question that would be worth asking. Did you find it, the next question is, did you find it easier for those that you were in character? Did you find it easier to move into your character? Did it feel like a natural fit? But how real, how much of the theatre did you feel, and how much did this feel like real life? So did the conceit of did the conceit of the theatre actually help the experience? Did it allow you to see or feel or do things that you might have not done if it had just been a straight kind of workshop? Did the actual framing of it as a piece of theatre, that the fact that you had to be an actor and audience, did that enrich the experience? Is another question that I wanted to dig into. Would you give some feedback on your experience of this theatre? What is the best way to do this? So again, if you've got time, I know that there's a huge amount of stuff going on here. There's 24 hours, there's loads of connections. People want to connect with each other and follow up on things. But if you found this experience valuable, would you be able or willing to give us some feedback on where it was valuable and maybe how you could improve it? Here's another question I think we should ask is this valuable for people that are playing the characters? Does it give you permission to think and do and act in certain ways you would find uncomfortable in a different setting. But also, if you were a member of the audience, were you engaged? Did you involve yourself with your avatar, the person that the character you related to? Did we set that up well enough, right? Would it help if at the beginning of the session everybody had the character what they were, and if you were an audience member, would it help if you were in the audience? The other question I really was intrigued by was, does the chat add to the experience, or does it pull you out of the conceit of the theatre, right? So in other words, because people are chatting, they're not in the room, they're not in the theatre so much. Or could you direct message the character you're supporting, because they're supposed to be your avatar, right? So that's another type of question. Is this worth sharing with people outside this community? So, and if it is, would it be some sort of edited, you know, highlights of this week's theatre, and seeing people move through different stages? Would that be useful for people to reproduce this? I don't know. If it was worthwhile, would you do it again? And would you recommend this experience to others? Those are the sort of questions that really struck me about this. Was the idea that the citizen theatre, was it a good idea? How could we do it better? And how did that impact you? How will you go away from this? What have you learned from this that you can bring into your real life in the real world? That's the sort of thing those are the sort of things that were occupying me as I was watching it. So Donna or
Andy, may I just say one thing?
Yeah,
so
jump in.
I've popped in my email address. I think I just got it wrong. I need to re-put it in. My email address so that you could send me an email if you want to be included in our research beyond this, right? So we're going to send you these questions that Andy has just asked, and perhaps others, and help us shape this, right? So the other thing I would ask you is, why don't we just do about a pop-up very quickly, and maybe just throw in your views now. Be fast and quick so that we can get as many people's views in as possible. Okay?
That's kind of where I was going, and just a recognition that this will always be different. The whole idea of it is to be improvisational and to allow for some of that humanness to come through, which I think it did. So reflections, popcorn style, in just a short word or two. Anybody, open up your mics and just jump in.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely very inspiring, and that my energy level increased as the conversation moved on, and I felt more confident. And yeah, I felt like I can, if because of my role, I could, yeah, it was like a confidence boost in a way, because yeah, I feel new to all of these things a little bit and a bit shy. And I hope that we will do something with the results that we gathered. That would be really nice. And yeah, it was really inspiring for me.
Cool. Yep, go ahead. Just jump in. Joseph, Yuri.
Oh, please, Joseph, please. Mute.
Mute.
Okay. I'm just bubbling with positive energy now. After coming to know that there are so many people, thinking in the same line and wanting to commit themselves for a better world. And I'm so happy to know that there are so many people, those who really dream of a better and peaceful world. And let us work together. It's a very good opportunity for everyone to come together, and for the organizing hosts for such an event. It's really wonderful. Nice. Thank you.
So Emma and Kimberly, you guys were listening the whole time. Can I ask Emma, what does she think?
For me, it was the first meet, and I got connected to this group through Yuri, because I'm part of this Imagine Action learning process. It was beautiful listening to all of you, and like the words that finally we reflected: gratitude, peace, co-create, co-ideate, a lot of words, right? And connect to the last words, what Joseph said. Let's bring a change in a positive way, in a peaceful way in this world. So it's so much learning. Thank you so much. Nice to be
Thank
part
you,
of you.
Emma. And Kimberly, are you still here?
Yes, just thank you for the invitation. So I have a lot of gratitude, very inspired by a lot of what I saw, learned a lot, and I loved kind of ending in the body. It felt like a relief because we were going fast and packing things in and trying to be spacious while doing that is, you know, elevating. So it was nice. Thank you.
Thank you. And one other person had their hands up before I asked them. Who's that?
Okay,
Somebody?
I'll put my hand up then.
Oh.
You on.
Did you want to say, Jerry?
Yes. I'm just so happy to be here. As Joseph said, you know, the operative word is people who care. I mean, that's uplifting, you know, in itself. So I'm really very happy that I did turn up, and I'm really glad to meet all these people. And thank you very much. Yeah.
I was happy you turned up because I needed a cynic. And Susie, just 1 word, 2 words, 3 words.
Not cynic, sane.
I also would like to share just a couple of reflections from all of this, because really every time we come together is a kind of a living lab opportunity to be this change and to get out of our heads. And we've all spent a lot of time on Zoom, okay? And you know what I'm talking about. We've been there, all of us, where we're on Zoom and we're unloading all the things we hold inside and we think. And then we are left with, well, what do we do about this? And this is kind of an enactment of the very work that a number of us are working on doing, which is a collective, co-creative effort around building coalitions, collaborative impact coalitions that actually go through these emergent and yet predictable pattern stages in order to come together and actually do real work. And it is another form of work system. So that is the work of Unstitution. And Unstitution is all of us. It's not a company. It's all of us around any number of initiatives and things that can be going on in the world where we can start to bring these anything and all of it together, because collaboration feels like one of the biggest things that we all need to learn how to do for real, and not just talk about. So those are just some comments that I wanted to share there, and others have their hands. Who hasn't had a chance to speak?
Oh, I'm sorry to have to cut in here, but we're at 57, so we have to wind up, Emma. But if we have an extra moment, I'll hand over to you. But yes, I just wanted to sort of round the hour off and say thank you to Ferial and Donna in particular, and Andy, and whoever was working, planning this on the back end, all of the actors. Well done, and all our guests. I think it was a really interesting, some really interesting ideas evolved. And I want to give everybody again a chance to move a little bit before our next session. And I also want to check in with you, Ferial. So you are hosting the next session, yes?
Yes, and the people, they were all in the previous session anyway, so it's really just a continuation for us.
Fantastic. Okay, in that case, let me actually close the recording first before, because thanks everyone, and just shut the recording down.